Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Holly, and I am excited for today's conversation because money is a great topic that I think most of us don't talk about enough. Was just actually having a conversation with my kids recently and trying to start conversations early. And I was thinking back to the fact that I'm like, nobody talked to me about money when I was in school or even as I became, a college student and different things like that. And so I'm excited for today's guest. I have with me Abbe Large. Welcome to the show, Abbe.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Sounds
Well,
like a very good topic. I love talking about this
yeah,
stuff.
money is, it makes the world go round. We need to have it for all the basics, but then especially as entrepreneurs and leaders inside of organizations, like we want to make sure that we're being financially responsible and we know how to put that money to good use. So I'm excited to hear kind of some of your thoughts. But before we go down that rabbit hole and hear all of the amazing things that you're going to share with us today, I'd love if you could take us back a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, and like how you came into this work that you're doing today?
Oh, sure. Well, I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I live in Connecticut. I have offices in Stamford, Connecticut, New York City, LA, Chicago, um, San Francisco, and we are a full service financial planning firm. And I got into this business at a very, I don't think anyone goes to college to be a financial planner. I think people wind up landing in this kind of work, if you will. But my background was in advertising, really. And very early on, I realized I wasn't talented enough to go down the route of being a copywriter or an art director. I was living in New York City in a third floor walk up. My family just moved to Texas. Not that there's anything wrong with Texas, but I didn't want to move there. I was living in New York City. Um, and they just assumed that I would move. And I said, I'm a New York girl. So I was working in an advertising agency, but I wasn't selling ad space. I was an assistant and I wasn't very good at it. I was really struggling with what my passions were and what I wanted to do. And one of the no, he was the head of the international publishing, came into my little cubicle area and he called me a maverick. He said, "You belong in sales." I'm like, okay, well, I'd love to do ad sales, but they won't hire me because they said I need 5 years of sales experience. So fast forward, I'm still floundering. I don't know, I think I was 26 years old, 25 years old. And I was putting Coca-Cola cans in his little office one day in his little cooler. And as I was putting them in, they were rolling out. And I kept putting them in, they kept rolling out. And he started cracking up. He said, "My God, if you do not leave here and get yourself a sales job, I'm going to have you fired. You are wasting your time." Well, he did me a very, very big favor because I wound up getting a sales job at a women's health club. And they gave me a script to learn. And I could not memorize the script. And the reason why I couldn't memorize it was because it wasn't my words.
Mm.
And it was a big lesson in authenticity in that moment, right? And so people would walk in and I would just connect with them automatically. And we would just talk about the programs and the space. And then these catty sales managers would take them in the back and sign them up, and I'd never get any credit for the sale. Well, this went on for quite a while and it just didn't feel right. And I went to mom and pop who owned the place and I said, "Look, this is just, they're not including me in this." And they said, "Whatever it takes to get the sale." So I was kind of, I don't know, just didn't feel right. Now, let me preface something. As I mentioned, my family moved. So I was living in an apartment that was going to go co-op, and they wanted me to either buy it or leave. I had no money in the bank. I was dating a schmuck who thought I should, work at the Gap on the sales floor. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what he thought my potential was. Well, this mom and pop of this gym sent me to a sales seminar. And in the first two rows were these bunch of guys from the Cowan Financial Group. And one of them came up to me. We exchanged business cards. He gave my business card to a sales manager. That sales manager called me like 5 times. I kid you not. I finally came in for the interview just to get him off my back. Like he wouldn't stop calling. And when I went in, everyone was so happy and in control of their destiny and healthy. And there was this energy and this vibe that was happening. And I said, I don't know what these people are doing, but I want to do that. I want in. And so in the first year, it was a lot of, test taking, studying, designations, just getting qualified to do this. And in the first year of the business, now remind you, I was the probably one of two women in the firm. I mean, there were no women in this business. It was really a man's world,
Yeah.
but I didn't think about it. I just was just full force going forward. Now, remind you, failure was not an option for me because I wasn't moving to Texas. So I really worked my butt off. Like, and it was hard. It was really hard. But I had support with the people that were there and my sales manager. And I remember crying every night in the shower. I mean, it was tough. But in
Yeah.
the first year, I placed top 5 in the company, in the entire company for people in their first year in the business. And I was the only woman on stage to do this. And fast forward, I met my husband. I met my best friends in life. I found my career. I bought my apartment, and I had money in the bank, and I was ready to rock and roll. And that is how I got into the business.
Very cool.
Fast forward, there was someone in my business, in my firm, who got cancer, and I watched him wither. And that was my first experience with disability insurance and life insurance and financial planning and how it affected his spouse. And very early on, that became my why.
Mm.
That was my why. And then fast forward, in 2019, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I had to deal with that. Now, remember, my family lived in Texas, so there was a lot of traveling and money being spent and all of these, care. And I was kind of, the person in my family that took care of everything. And the money conversation was excluded. And the reason why is because we were smart enough to buy life insurance on my dad and disability insurance and long-term care insurance and all of these financial planning tools in place that are available when people need it the most. And so what happened was it took the money conversation out of the equation, and we were just focusing on my dad and making sure that he was just, with family and surrounded by love. And that rooted what I do. It really rooted. And I was unapologetic talking to people after that about making sure that they protect themselves and their families from financial ruin, because it can happen. And when I see a GoFundMe page, or I see, a campaign, and, for raising money for someone that's sick or someone that passed away or someone that's financially struggling, it pains me
Yeah.
because they didn't do the proper financial planning. So experience has allowed me to really gain the perspective to be able to authentically share with people what happens when you don't plan. And I'm very passionate about that because I'm very protective over my clients. I'm um, very straightforward about what needs to happen. And um, I don't know, I feel like it's my job to fight for what's right.
Mm.
And that's how I got into it. And that's what I do. That's what I
Yeah.
love to do.
And I think that's something that happens often, and just depending on what industry you're in, it might look a little bit different, but especially with in the world that you're in, like you see things firsthand, how it impacted your family. But then even I'm sure as you support your clients when they're going through hard times, to make sure that things are set up appropriately and like they have the financial support and they have those pieces, like that can play on your heart. And it also like I could see how it could light a fire to make sure that everybody's protected and everybody has the support that they need. And I remember I was in my early 20s when I lost my mom. She was taken in a car accident, and
Oh my gosh, I'm
we
sorry.
Thank you. Like we did have a small life insurance policy. My mom had been divorced. She was engaged to somebody. Like there was all these different pieces, and I was in my early 20s, and I, was trying to figure out just life in general, and to lose her and then to like try to figure out everything. Like I was the one that was responsible to take care of all those
Mm.
pieces, and it definitely, like, I pay attention to those things now because I learned so much during the time. Like I had to like there was no GoFundMe accounts 20 something years ago. Like that wasn't a thing. I had to find the money. Like I had to come up with the money just to do like
Mm.
the burial and, to
Oh,
make arrangements and stuff for her. And I want to make sure I never put my kids in that position because, and it wasn't my mom. My mom just didn't know. She was 49 years old. Like she was super young
mm.
and like had so much more life to live. And I think it takes sometimes either seeing somebody else go through an experience or you going through it before we think, oh, we should prepare for these types of situations for ourselves, for our future. So I'm curious, like when you're supporting your clients and helping get people on the right track, like what are some of the first steps people, either whether they're entrepreneurs and they're running a business, and is there a difference between like an entrepreneur and somebody who works for an organization for how you recommend they set up those types of things to make sure that they're taking care of themselves and their families in those moments?
Yeah, so there's two different planning routes, right? So if you're working for a company, there's take a look at their benefits. A lot of companies, they really have ramped up the benefits to attract and retain talent. So the benefits is, when you sign up for your benefits, you may want to speak to a financial advisor about how, what should you forego, what should you take. Typically, group insurance is a cafeteria plan. They have to supply it for everybody. Non-discriminatory laws, ERISA rules, et cetera. And so there's limitations to a lot of these programs, right? So for example, disability insurance will only cover 60% of your base salary, typically up to a maximum benefit of, usually $10,000 a month. And the higher earners that are over that threshold, they're really not covering 60% of their compensation.
Yeah.
They're maybe covering 30%. So there's a shortfall that you'll need to supplement over and above that with individual disability insurance. For example, the life insurance, companies can offer, 50, $100,000, but anything over that, typically most don't offer a large amount of life insurance for families, but if they do offer it, you sign up for it. It's usually very cheap. It's usually given to you, but it's not portable. None of these benefits are portable. Life insurance, disability insurance. The health insurance you can take with you with Cobra, obviously, until you've got that bridge there. So there's several months for you know, to have the coverage under Cobra. But there's always these shortfalls. So a lot of employees make the mistake of saying, "Oh, my company covers that for me." But nobody reads the benefits. Nobody understands what do you have to do to qualify to get them. Nobody understands that they're not portable. So these are some of the shortfalls that people that work for an employer need to understand and need to talk to a financial advisor about some of those shortfalls to make sure that they understand that, because what you don't want to have happen is you discover it when you need it. That's you don't want to do. For the entrepreneurs, now there's another totally different topic. Now, if you have a partner, you have to talk about buy-sell agreements. What happens if you live, if you die or become disabled with your partner? What happens is that partner becomes partner with that other person's spouse, right? So there needs to be some kind of agreements put in place, exit strategies put in place, and these plans need to be funded, right? They need to be funded they can be funded by assets. But the problem with that is that when, for example, if somebody dies, right, and you have a buy-sell agreement and they're supposed to buy you out of your shares of the company, or buy the spouse out so that you're not partners with that company, there has to be funds in that moment. And life insurance is the best kind of product to put into buy-sell agreements. I know I'm going a little too weedy here, but the reason why that works is because the death benefit comes exactly when you need it the most, and
Yeah.
it's not touched by any income taxes or things like that. So it's very important to discuss that with a financial planner. How are you going to fund these agreements, right? Because you never know when the event is going to happen, and you don't want to start liquidating the assets under management or the assets within the company. So, because you never know what the markets are doing in that particular moment. You never know what the business is going to be in that particular moment when it's needed the most. So most people, what they do is they fund these agreements with insurance policies. In terms of benefits, my firm deals with that as well. We deal with corporate benefits, executive carve-out programs. So it's important to speak to a financial advisor to figure out what you can I'm very sorry. My dog is kicking me right now. I have to put him up on my lap. I apologize.
No preps.
I hope you can edit that out. Anyway, so it's very important to speak to a financial advisor to understand what kind of agreements you need, how you can fund them, IRAs, Roth IRAs, how you can defer income, all of these things, taxes. These are things that clearly, if you're starting a business, you're not an expert on.
Yeah.
So, you need to speak to your attorney and your CPA and your financial advisor. And the financial advisor, for example, I like to work with my clients in conjunction with their CPA and their attorneys, because I like to be the quarterback, because people do planning with different people at different times, and there's such a lack of coordination. So what I like to do is make sure that there's this coordination among all the assets, and making sure that we're, understanding the systematic risk that's out there, and savings and retirement, and what happens if you live too long, if you die prematurely, or you become disabled. These are three things that can happen.
Yeah.
And so we plan for all three, right? If you're going to live a long life, what does that look like? What are you going to retire? Do you have a distribution plan at retirement? Believe it or not, distribution during retirement is more dangerous than the accumulation phase of your life. And the reason is because you still have all the risks involved in the financial world, right? You have market risk and inflation risk and tax risk, all that stuff, interest rate risk. But the one thing that's missing is new money coming in. So when people retire, there's no more money coming in, there's no more inflow.
Yeah.
And so it's very important when you're taking money out, it's not only asset allocation during the accumulation phase of your life, but it's also asset location. Where are the assets located? And so where am I going to take, from which bucket do I take? Do I take taxable, tax deferred? Do I take money from my tax-free? So it's very important to have all three buckets during the accumulation phase of your life that you're putting money into, because when you have that distribution phase, you're going to be taking money out of those buckets. And which bucket that is will depend on what's going on in the world,
Yeah.
if
I know.
that makes sense.
Yeah, to a degree. It's definitely a more in-depth conversation, I think, like case by case, depending on, what people's specific needs are. Like I think one of the things I hear the most from my clients is like, am I ready yet to speak to a financial planner? Do I need to have enough, like how much money do I need to have ready to invest? And I'm always like, talk to them early and often is usually what I
Oh,
say
I
when it
totally
comes
agree.
to,
I totally agree with you. Early and often. You shouldn't wait,
yeah,
because if you start a plan, it's kind of like, think about it. I mean, if you're playing a sport, you need a coach, you need a
yeah,
plan. It just makes sense. I mean, you can go at it by yourself, but you're going to be in a position where, like, okay, now what? Or maybe there's tax laws that you're not aware of, or I don't think I don't think one person has all the best ideas. Let's put it that way. And I think it's really important to give up that control and recognize what you're good at, what you're not good at, and hire people to help you what you're not good at.
yeah, absolutely. I'm a business coach, so when I'm working with my clients, as soon as they start asking me questions too deep about HR or too deep about their like how they should handle their finances, like as they start to scale, especially, like they start asking questions, and I'm like, this is the perfect time for you to go back to your CPA or to hire an HR consultant to come in or to talk to a financial planner. Like I think it's important that we have a lot of good people on our team because
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in those areas. Like I can tell you what I know from how I've, done my own financial planning, or I can share what I've learned through my CPA, but that's not always the right situation for them. And I
Mhm.
think we can get ourselves in trouble when we don't bring in some people who are, experts in their niche and can really support us and give us the right types of guidance that we need.
Oh, totally. I
You,
totally agree.
you mentioned something early while you were sharing your story with us, and that was that you, like when you were learning sales, they were giving you scripts and you were struggling in those moments to like make it your own and really embody, like for me, I call it like embodying the message in a way that really shows up, authentic and vulnerable and allows you to really build those true connections. I'm curious, like as you've like grown and strengthened how you communicate with people, what have been some like big things that have really allowed you to make those right connections and really call people in to the work that you're doing and making people want to work with you versus all the other financial planners and other people that are out there? What are some tips or secrets?
I feel very strongly that my job starts after the product is sold. I, I, I am, I, this industry is interesting, especially the insurance industry. Um, I, it's not about the money, how much money I'm making for me. It's about making sure that I'm creating relationships and that last a lifetime, that matter, right? And I grow with my clients. My annual reviews, I mean, listen, in the investment world, you have to meet with your client once a year. It's required, but it's not required with the insurance industry, which is interesting to me.
Mm,
And the insurance industry, it's when you sell a product like a life insurance product or a disability product or a long-term care product, especially life or long-term care, those products come into play much later in life, right?
yeah.
And the agent that sold it or the financial planner that sold that particular product, where are they? Where are they?
Yeah.
That's what I don't like. I want to make sure that I'm there. I had a client who passed away. I knew him for 25 years. His wife memorized my cell phone number. He made his wife memorize my cell phone number and said, if something ever happens to me, you must call Abbe Large. That is your first call. And she actually did
Mm,
that. And so I was able to cocoon her with advice and advisors to help her and empower her to get through such a difficult time. That, to me, that's what this is about, right?
yeah.
Taking someone's hand and making sure that if they're sick or injured and they can't work any longer and they're scared and they're embarrassed and they don't know what to do, they call me and guess what? I'm holding your hand. I'm going to make sure that I get on the phone with the top claims rep. I'm going to connect the two of you. I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to that is what my job is, to make sure that those products that I put in place are there when they're needed the most. But most importantly, it's about my connection with my clients. Money is an interest. You mentioned money before. Money is such an interesting topic. It drives markets. The emotions of money drives markets. And it's really important for me to understand with my clients, what is it about money that is important to you? How were you raised with your parents? What was that relationship like with money? When you were growing up, how did that feel to you? Like, these are the questions that I ask my clients when I first dive in with that discovery call, that fact find session. I really want to get under the hood with their emotional feelings about money because everyone's got a different story.
Yeah.
And I have a client that husband and wife, and I asked that question, what was your relationship like growing up with money? And the wife said, oh, we were so wealthy. We were like private plane wealthy, and we lost it all.
Mm,
And so her risk tolerance was, she wasn't very, she was scared. She cash under the bed, and the husband,
yeah.
totally different experience. So it's so getting that information with people is very important because then you could really choose the products that fit and work and do what they're supposed to do. I don't know if I answered your question or not. I think I went on a tangent, but that's what's important.
Right.
right? And the authenticity and being unapologetic about telling people what's right, what's not right. And just making sure they're protected, making sure they're doing the right thing. They're on the right path, and building those relationships that matter.
Yeah. And relate, I mean, no matter which type of industry you're in, like the relationship and the connection and that nurturing of that relationship, I think is probably one of the most important things that we can do because people buy from people they know, like, and trust, that they feel connected with, they feel some kind of like bond in those moments. And especially when people are, talking about money, that money can be taboo or it can be like a lush, beautiful conversation, but like not everybody's on the same path with it, right? Like I remember I led a money mindset workshop for a local nonprofit for a financial youth group a couple months back, and I was sharing some stories about like just things I saw when I was a child. Like nobody talked to me about money. It
Hmm.
was definitely not a conversation. Like we didn't talk about sex, we didn't talk about money. Like there was just things that my parents just didn't talk about. Like they were fearful of it. They thought if they talked about it, maybe like it would come to flourish. Who knows? Like in those
Hmm.
moments. But I remember like my grandma used to say like money doesn't grow on trees or you can't buy happiness. So I was trying to like remember, and I was telling the youth in the room, my grandma used to take, I remember like one of my favorite memories was my grandma always loved to take me shopping. I was the only granddaughter. She had three grandsons and one granddaughter, and I was really close with my grandparents, and she would take me on shopping bins. And we would come home and she would be like, leave the bags in the trunk until grandpa leaves for work. Didn't think anything of it at the time. But then as I was an adult, I remember one time going, oh, I'll leave this in the car, I'll grab it out later. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to hide something that is totally fine that I just went and bought because of
That's
like
interesting.
a message that I, heard over and over again. Like we would go shopping all the time and we'd leave it in the trunk and then grandpa would be busy or he'd
Oh,
go to
isn't that
work and we'd go
interesting?
out and we'd get him and, hang it up in the closet and act like we've had it forever. And I was like, I saw that showing up again and I was like, oh, we have to break that habit. Like I don't want my kids to feel like they have to hide that they bought something or like it's shameful or like we're going to get in trouble or whatever those different things are. But
So interesting.
it was like we were talking like we had a whole conversation with the group at that point about like things that messages they've heard or things that they've experienced and like how do we break those paradigms and really shift it so that money can be talked about. Like um I have four kids. I think I started, I don't know if I said it right before we came on the podcast or if
Wow.
it was in our beginning conversation, but I have a 28-year-old, I have a 19-year-old, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. And it's hard sometimes to talk about money, but I'm like, I want to have these conversations early and often as much as we can because I don't want them to be like me where I was like going off to college and I was applying for every student loan at spring break because that's I was getting a free t-shirt and I had four or five credit cards by the time I was like 20 years old and I had no idea how to be financially responsible. And I
Wow.
remember, going in debt and like trying to figure out how to pay it off and like those different pieces. And I'm like, let's talk about this now because like learn from my mistakes, learn from the things that I've experienced.
That's
I'm
really important to learn from the mistakes. I listen, as parents, we have 18 years. That's it.
Yeah.
18 years to raise responsible, independent, financially fit children. And it starts with having dinner at home every night, as much as you can, as often as you can, with the whole family and talking about money, not making it taboo. It's so interesting to me that people have this weirdness around the topic of money.
Mhm.
It's I think it's weirder than having the topic about sex. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But my children, my husband and I were very, obviously we're financial planners, so we were talking about money all the
Extremely
time.
in-depth talks, probably.
Right. It was like the two of us. I mean, he does what I do. I mean, we were talking about money all the time in front of our children. And they asked questions, it wasn't a taboo conversation. However, when it was really important for us for them to be financially understanding of, you're right, money doesn't grow on trees. Money doesn't buy happiness. So what we decided to do when they were in high school was we used to go on these family trips and we said, look, this is our budget. I have three children. I said, the three of you figure it out, figure out where you want to go, figure out flights, hotels, restaurants, activities, soup to nuts, figure it out. Here's the budget. Present it to us, present us 3 ideas. You have a month. And they did. And can I tell you what this taught them? It taught them how to work together,
Mm.
because when they're adults, they're going to have to talk about money, right? They're going to have to talk about money with their spouses. They're going to have to address it with their children. So it taught them how to work together, which I thought was really powerful. It also taught them that money doesn't grow on trees. This is how much this costs.
Yes.
So they got like a real sense of how much dinner was, how much an activity was, because they had that budget and they took care of everything. It was one of the most incredible vacations we've ever had. And it
Where
really,
did they map out going? Where did you go?
we wound up going to Park City.
Okay.
And we went horseback riding and we went hiking and we had, we went reservations for restaurants and the hotel was wonderful. But here's the thing, they were in charge of it all. So it really taught them how to budget. It taught them how to work together. It taught them how to talk about money. It taught them collaboration.
Yeah.
It creativity, all of that stuff from that one exercise, which was, in my mind, extraordinary. Because now they're adulting, right? And they talk about which credit card they should get that has the best benefits, which accounts or have this, or which treasuries, or which what has the better return, or it's incredible. They're talking about traveling and points and how much points they're racking up, and I mean, it's fascinating to watch now, and I think it stemmed from the fact that we had them really involved at an early age
Yeah.
to take on that responsibility. And I think it's important as parents, watch them, give them the exercise, let them do it. The other thing
I,
that we
I love
do,
that idea. By the way,
did
I'm
you?
gonna probably steal it from you
You can, and
and
I hope your
totally
audience
run with my
does.
kids. Like I want to see what they come up with.
It's so fun. It's so fun. But that taught them quite a bit in that exercise. The other thing that I can talk to you about, or your listeners who have young children, when they get home from school or they get home, how was your day? How was school? Fine, fine, fine. This is the key to get it out of them. I used to say, tell me 2 things that are true and one thing that's not true that happened today. And I have to guess which one's not true. And it'd be this game, and we'd play it every day. And it just gets them talking
Mm.
about the day. And then you can really hone in on teaching and counseling and parenting and doing those things. So it's one way to get kids to talk.
Yeah. That's an icebreaker I play with a lot of my entrepreneurs and organizational leaders when we're doing like icebreakers, like trying to get to know each other better. I love that idea. I actually haven't thought about bringing it home to the kids, so that's great.
Yeah, it's really fun to do. Um, but I think raising financially fit children, I think, it's interesting. I had a client who said to me, but I don't want them to suffer. I don't want them to go through what I went through. My answer is, how do you think you got to where you are?
Yeah.
How do you think you are the way you are? Have you, there's a blessing of a skinned knee.
Mhm.
Let them make mistakes. Let them, have a leash, have a long leash, but have a leash nonetheless, so that they're out there, they're making those mistakes under your roof. You can talk to them about it. You can communicate about it. Making mistakes, in my mind, is a good thing. It's funny. Children go into adulthood thinking that mistakes are bad
Yeah.
because of tests, right? They always can't make a mistake, can't make a mistake. And it's ingrained.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I said to my older daughter the other week, I said, if you could never fail, what would you do? Her response was, I wouldn't get very far. I thought, oh my God, what a great answer. It's so true. So I would encourage people to, with their children, is to, allow them the freedom to do these things, to make those mistakes under your roof, because once they go off to college, you become a consultant.
Absolutely.
It's just different, you know?
Yeah. As we start to wrap up this conversation, I have a million questions I could ask, but I'm gonna pull us back in. before we go to rapid fire questions, if you could give like one or two like top suggestions if somebody's thinking like I've never reached out to a financial planner before, or maybe they haven't talked to theirs in a long time, they don't even know who their financial planner is. Like what's like one or two steps that we should all do to make sure we're taking back that control of our finances and we're, investing or doing the right types of steps.
Decide. Decide. Don't just talk about it. Just decide. And once you decide, take action. I think a lot of people have trouble deciding.
Yeah.
They talk about it, they hem and haw about it. Just decide. And if you decide something and you're wearing your decision for a few days and it doesn't feel right, maybe that's not the right decision. It's how I make hard decisions.
Mhm.
Just make the decision, wear it. I think it's important to understand that not one person has all the best ideas, and it's okay to have something checked or review. I think if you're not good at something, understand that you need help and give up control. I think control is a powerful thing, and that people need to just give up that control and delegate it to a professional who understands. But most importantly, find the right person that you connect with. Find the person that you feel good with, that understands you, that's listening to you, really deeply listening. Because a lot of people don't understand that God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. And a lot of people are out there trying to show off how much they know, but nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And it sounds so simple, but it's so true.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
what I would say to that.
All right. I love it. Make that decision and go out there and do it and take some action. Absolutely. So, rapid fire questions. We want to get to know you just a little bit better. If I could buy you a plane ticket and send you anywhere in the world today, where would you go and why?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Where would I go? I'd go to Iceland.
Mm.
I'd go to Iceland. I think I've never been. I heard it's not so difficult to get to. I also heard it's not expensive to be there. And they have a seed bank there. I think is really cool. Um, I would go to Iceland.
Okay. Let's pack. Let's go. Sounds great. If Abby needs to reflect and recharge and reconnect with herself, what do you like to do? How do you like to like
You're gonna laugh at this one. I take my electric leaf blower and I go outside and I start leaf blowing. It calms me down. I don't know why, but it's the funniest thing. I have the most manicured place in the world because all I do is I'm like, I need a break. I need to leaf blow. It's the funniest thing. I just did it before this morning. Leaf blowing. I don't know what it is about that. I also love just working out. I love that. And honestly, just going outside, just being in nature and just closing my eyes and just hearing the birds and just smelling the air. And that is also a recharge for me.
yeah,
Yeah, leaf
awesome.
blowing.
What is one piece of your legacy that you want to leave an imprint on the world with?
Wow, these are incredible questions. I'd love to be a great mom, a great wife, a great friend, a wonderful um, person, a badass.
Yeah,
There you go.
love it. All right, and my last question, what does attract and stand out mean to you?
Attract and stand out. What do you mean?
Like, it's the name of my podcast, but like it's like a
Oh,
like a
okay.
like attracting the right types of people to you and like standing out in your industry. Like what is
Oh,
about
interesting.
that?
Okay, attract and stand out. Well, I think at the end of the day, it's authenticity.
Yeah,
Period. End of conversation. When you are your true, authentic self, people can sense that. People feel that. And when you're open to talking about yourself, others open up. And to do it in an authentic genuine way, that stands out to me.
Absolutely. Abby, this has been so fun having you on the podcast and hearing your stories and your tips and just things that we should all definitely sit back and think about and make some decisions on after hearing this episode. I know people are going to want to connect with you. What is the best place for them to go to?
Oh, I hope so. I think email would be the best. It's alarge@lenoxadvisors.com, LENOXADVISORS. LinkedIn is also good, or you can just find me on Lennox Advisors website, but the email is the best way to reach me.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's a wrap, everybody, for another episode of the Attract and Stand Out podcast. Remember, I believe in you. You're allowed to stand out. You're allowed to shine. You're allowed to be you. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.